Immanuel Kant on the taxation of the 1%. Immanuel Kant believes that a person must act in accordance with the universal law. A person is constituted by the possession of autonomous will, reason, and a minimum moral sense. The universal law requires that a person acts in such a way that they treat a person as an end and never simply as a mean. A person must act in a way in which their action becomes a universal law of nature. They then make themselves members of the kingdom of end. The kingdom of end is a systematical union of various rational beings who treat themselves and others as ends and never simply as a means. Treating a person as an end is to treat a person in accordance with the universal law. Treating a person as a means to treat a person or is to treat said person without respect to their reason and autonomous will. The universal law, which holds the person, that person must be treated as an end and never simply or merely as a means. Person acting in accordance with the universal law of nature must then act as legislators of the kingdom of ends, which requires a person to treat all others, even those who do not yet possess reason and autonomous will, as a person with respect to reason and autonomous will as they do not necessarily have. In our constant conflicting society, the subject of income inequality and taxation have been the cornerstone of wealth debate. Thus, it is morally permissible for the government to increase federal taxes on the wealthier 1% of the population to pay for public expenses, simply because of their income generated from their occupation and field of work. Federal taxes are taxes levied by the United States Internal Revenue Service, or IRS, on the annual earnings of individuals, corporations, trusts, and other legal entities. Federal income taxes are applied on all forms of earning that makes up taxpayers' taxable incomes, such as employment earnings or capital gains. The United States Internal Revenue Service is a U.S. government agency responsible for tax collection and tax law enforcement. This includes income tax forms, instructions, or agency publications. Public expenses are services paid by federal income taxes, which includes national defense, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, interest on national debt, and safety net programs, which includes welfare, unemployment, and homeless shelters. The top 1% earners in the United States are individuals who earns more than $516,633. Occupations and field in the line of work of the 1% includes business operations, management, skilled salesmanship, real estate, medical field, financial management, lawyers or law, non-working or retired, blue-collar labor servicer or construction companies, and computer, math, engineering, or technical fields. The wealthier 1% should not receive a tax increase based on their earnings or occupation. That would be morally impermissible. Every person has an autonomous will and reason, therefore they possess the same universal law as well as the same opportunity as a person in the 1%. Because the population is granted the same opportunity as the 1%, they too can possess the same occupation as the 1% to increase their income levels. By taxing the 1% top income earners, the government and society would then be using the rich to generate tax revenue for public expenses. This would conclude that the 1% is treated as a means and not as an end, which in Kant's theory is morally impermissible. Because the increase in tax imposed by the government not only affect the 1%, this would negate the universal law, thereby excluding the government from the kingdom of ends. If the government increases the federal tax rate on the wealthier 1% of society, the government would then be acting against in accordance of the universal law. Therefore, increasing the tax rate for the 1% is morally impermissible.